Alright, I promised a Bellator video. As you can see, probably why I was delayed is this lovely voice of mine right now. So I'm going to try and make it through it. And, try to keep my promise on the matter before it's actually out. Okay. So first up, I'm going to look just very, at the tournament brackets. I'm not going to break it down fight by fight, because I'm going to do that as they come. But I am going to talk about who I think is going to win the tournaments, because this is kind of my early on prediction for tournament winner. At featherweight, you have some interesting fighters. You have a lot of good fighters, actually. Like Alexander Bezeha, Mike Richmond, Mike Corey are two up-and-comers. Nezra Maligari is always good for depth of the tournament. And you have Gaynard da Silva, who, if he can convincingly make the weight throughout it, is definitely a threat. But the guy I'm going with in the end is Marlon Sandro. He's lost to the tournament champion twice. He lost to Pat Curran when Pat Curran won the Summer Series, and he lost to Daniel Strauss, where Daniel Strauss won the tournament. So with those two out of it, there's just no one that I really think convincingly could be. He's already beaten Bezeha. When I think about Mike Richmond and Mike Corey, I think that he presents a lot of technical problems for them. They're both very good athletes. They're both very fast. They're both very strong. But I don't think they're on a technical level with Sandro. And then you have Maligari, who I think is really just filler. And that's not disrespecting Maligari. I think he's a very good fighter. I think he delivers good fights a lot of the time out. But I just think that he's probably not up to the task. And Da Silva, I just don't see making the weight all the way through. The lightweight tournament bracket, the most impressive fighter to me is Patricia Pitbull Ferrari, but he's going to have to get through a guy who has beaten him in the past by submission, Lloyd Cupcake Woodard. He's a guy to look out for. And then you get, coming down from 170, David Rickles, who's a pretty impressive fighter. A couple of impressive kickboxers in Thiago Michel and Alexander Sarnowski, both of whom have ground games to go with that. In the end, I'm going to go with Pitbull. I think that if he gets a rematch with Woodard, I think he can beat him. I think he could beat Rickles, because Rickles is quite aggressive and somewhat wide open. I think that he presents more problems than Sarnowski and Michel do away from the feet. I think he can hang with them on the feet. So there's that. And then those are really the threats I see to him. Welterweight tournament, I mean, you got everyone's favorite Marius Zarowskis. You have former finalist Brett Weidman at lightweight. He's back up at welterweight, apparently. That's not a good move for him. Douglas Lima's in here. Ben Saunders is in here. I'm going with Douglas Lima. There's just no one, I think, that beats him in this particular tournament. Middleweight, you got a number of interesting guys who have been here before. Vitor Viana, Andreas Spang, Brian Rogers, Slava Vasilevsky, Bruno Santos was in this tournament before. You also have some interesting newcomers like Mikhail Parlo, and then some good journeymen like Brett Cooper and Doug Marshall. This one is probably the hardest one for me to predict, because while there are a lot of guys I can see winning this one, it's hard to say. Everyone has kind of that anti-them. Viana's an amazing grappler, much better than any other grappler here, but he's been knocked out by Brian Rogers, and I think Andreas Spang can probably do the same to him. And Parlo's an extremely, and Slav Vasilevsky are both extremely gifted strikers as well. That's a tough call. In the end, I'm going to go with Slava Vasilevsky. That's my least confident pick. I think that when it comes down to well-roundedness and the ability to beat a lot of the other guys in this tournament, I think it comes down to him. But this one has, I would have to say, the only guys I really can't see winning are Cooper and Marshall. That's it. I think everyone else is very much an option. Light heavyweight. You got some notable names here from the UFC with Seth Petrozelli and Renato Sobral. You got King Mo, Emmanuel Hardcore, Kid Newton. This is the one where there's only really 4 guys to really mention, and that's them. And I get King Mo all the way. He's the best wrestler of the bunch, with the exception of Seth Petrozelli. They're all primarily wrestlers. Even though I think King Mo is not as good of a grappler or striker as Bob Lou, I don't see that playing a huge role. The question I have is that with his dual TNA Bellator thing, we'll see, how well he does. And then let's go to the fight card that's happening this Thursday. We have on the preliminary fight card, we have Joe Camacho versus Aaron Miller. Don't really care. Kleber Luciano versus Mario Rivera. Don't really care. Joe Williams versus Jamie Yeager. Smart money is probably on Yeager, but I'm going to be cheering against him in any fight he ever has. Savant Young versus Mike Guyman. Savant Young is too small for lightweight. Mike Guyman is coming down from 170, where he is not small, but not big. But I just think that despite the fact that Mike Guyman, I mean, both of these guys are getting old. Mike Guyman's 38, 6 foot, 155 pounds at the weigh-in time it will be. And Savant Young is 5'9" and 36, or 5'6", but not even 5'9". So I don't see how Savant Young wins this, even though I think he is the better fighter. I think that on the feet, a 6-inch difference in height and reach is going to be a lot. I think on the ground, Guyman is good enough. Guyman is a former Division I wrestler. So yeah, I got out of the way. Brian Warren versus JJ Ambrosi, taking JJ Ambrosi to win because Brian Warren's a joke. This is my opinion. Ambrosi really underwhelmed when he got a shot at the Ultimate Fighter, and I think that's kind of ruined him a little bit. But I foresee him being able to submit Brian Warren in this one. Jason Lambert, Hector Ramirez, in what I believe is the tournament reserve bout at 205. Going back and forth on this one. I'm going with Lambert, but Hector Ramirez winning wouldn't really surprise me. They're both reasonably good wrestlers who have decent hands. Don't have a history being submitted, particularly. I just think that Lambert is a little bit above, but the problem is that Lambert, sometimes he looks, after that ill-fated cut to 185, he really has never really seemingly returned to his prior former self. So I'm going to see if he can do this. But Hector's not been the most active of fighters either in recent years. Let's see here. Let's see here. Since he got cut from the UFC for losing to Forrest Griffin, he's gone 3-1 over a period spanning now 6 years. Yeah, he hasn't fought since 2011. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Lambert. In the light heavyweight tournament, Emmanuel Hardcade Newton versus Atanas. I'm not very good at the whole silent letter starting Russian names. I'm sorry, but Jambazov is, I believe, how it's pronounced. Go with Emmanuel Hardcade Newton. Like it or not, a lot of the lower half, I guess you would say, of the 205 tournament is very much filler. And then Seth Petrozelli versus Jacob No. I've got Seth Petrozelli winning that pretty easily as well. Pat Curran versus Patricio Pitbull Ferrari for the featherweight title. I got Pat Curran winning. Pitbull still is somewhat deficient in his wrestling, and it's something he's been working on. And this is in no means a knock on him, because when a fighter has an obvious weakness and he's trying to improve it, I mean, that's all anyone can ask. But Pat Curran is a stud at this division. He's maybe second to Michael Chandler, the guy that the UFC really needs to ponder going after. I mean, beating Joe Warren, beating Marlon Sandro, beating Ronnie Man, not as impressive, but Luis Palomino, giving Eddie Alvarez a good fight. I mean, these are all a lot of things that lead to believing that this is a top 10 featherweight. And I got him winning this one by decision, just because Pitbull, very, very hard to finish. I want to say never has been finished, but I do want to also look at that. Yeah, he has only lost, of course, to Joe Warren. Very close fight with Daniel Strauss back in the day, 2011. Hasn't fought in a while. Other notable wins over George Karakane, who is now pretty notable because he beat Kaya over in Japan. Pair of wins over Wilson Hayes as well. Not as impressive CV as I was thinking in my head. I think Pitbull's one of those fighters who you see him and you're impressed versus who he's beating. Babalu Mikhail Zayats. I am a fan of Mikhail Zayats. I enjoy watching him fight, but he has no hope in this fight. He's either going to get decisioned or he's going to get submitted. Like or not, this is a guy that got TKO by Vinny Magalhaes. That's all I feel has to be said about him. I mean, every time he runs up against a fighter that everyone else knows, he kind of loses. Daniel Tabara, Robert Jocks, Lucio Linhares, all of these people, you know, they're borderline fighters that, you know, people who really follow MMA, we do know them, but it's not impressive to lose to them. And then in the main event, Michael Chandler, Rick Hahn. Been going back and forth on this one a lot. The betting odds really favor Chandler, and I understand why. He's younger, he's faster, he's still more acclimated to 155. We've seen him go a long way and look strong the whole way through. Whereas in the Brett Weidman fight, we saw Rick Hahn look a little tired, a little gassed out. You know, if he can't get Chandler out of there right away, how does he do? Yeah, I gotta go Chandler decision. Hahn is a guy who hasn't been finished. I wish I could really have a little more faith. Yeah, the only loss he's had is to Jay Haran, a fight that a lot of people thought he won. That being said, the fight before that was a split decision win over Lee Good, and a lot of people thought that Lee Good won that fight. So, you know, kind of balances out, I guess. Yeah, Chandler, I just see him being too fast. More technical with his hands, and probably able to put Hahn on his back a couple times. But this is a very, very interesting fight. It's always interesting when you go wrestling on judo. Very interesting. We'll see what happens. That is the card that is actually announced. That being said, apparently King Mo is going to be on the card against a veteran Polish fighter who you probably don't know, and he will probably squash. That's it. I mean, you know, King Mo's got a very easy path to the title. I think he's going to fight. According to the brackets, and these have never been set in stone, so I mean, Bellator kind of changes them as they kind of wish. But he is fighting, you know, the biggest can in the tournament right now, and then he's going to fight the winner of Emmanuel Newton and Atanas Jambazov. Yeah, that's really all I have to say on the matter. Anyways, my thoughts on the tournament, my thoughts on Thursday's card. Enjoy it, because believe me, people, free MMA, watch it. You don't want to have the UFC monopoly. And that's not an anti-UFC statement. That's when the UFC gets to officially look at it from a non-competitive point of view, and every time they have, the fighters' pay has suffered. The cards have suffered because they've been more willing to let people go. Because there's nowhere for them to go, and that's kind of my point. Is, I mean, as much as, you know, having the UFC is a big time, you know, say a bad thing, but this isn't like people have kind of been like, well, the NFL is big because and that's a great thing, but the thing is, the NFL has competitive teams, the UFC has. What makes us the most money? That's it. Anyways, that's Pop Fiction.